Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the WM32 Football Podcast. I hope you are all well today. And for today's episode, myself and Wes will be talking about the recent breaking news that we heard yesterday, and that is that Harry Kane, Tottenham striker, will be leaving Tottenham Hotspurs at the end of the season. So myself and Wes today in this episode will be discussing all about Harry Kane, his decision to leave, the impact it will have on the club, and where we think he'll be going next. So, Wes, thank you for joining me today. First question, let's get straight into it. You being a Tottenham fan, and you seeing Harry Kane develop into the world-class striker that he now is today. Um, what were your thoughts when you heard the breaking news yesterday of him leaving at the end of the season?
Um, yeah, well, it's a bit painful, isn't it, really, for all our Spurs fans, to be honest. He has been, certainly this season, he has been the shining light in what has been a very, very underwhelming and very, very disappointing season for Tottenham. It has to be said. Yeah, I think it's one of those. It's just feels a bit strange in terms of the timing. He's seen it. It feels like he's like left it kind of as long as possible. Um, so yeah, but it was actually quite interesting. I was out coaching last night and didn't come in till fairly late, and I come in and it wasn't even a hello, how are you from my mum and dad. It was it was on about the news that he's expressed his desire almost to leave Tottenham Hotspur. But I think there's loads and loads of interesting little details that have come out regarding this. And it's obviously Sky Sports News sort of broke the news last night. But off the back of it, like usually when something like this happens, um, there's more than one news outlet that breaks the story around the similar time. Um, from what I've seen on social media, it was only Sky that were really reporting it, which is strange. Um, that coincides with usually as well a player's statement. So we've seen that in the past where players look at and assess the situation, and they usually say that they're after a new challenge, and things like that. I think I even saw Ryan Bertrand, who's due to leave Southampton at the end of the season. Even he come out and put a statement out to say that he was leaving, and he was thankful for the time at his football club. We haven't had that from Harry Kane, so there's a lot of kind of missing pieces here to this particular jigsaw puzzle. And there's even journalists that are really, really well connected with Tottenham. They follow them home and away, and they're reporting actually the complete opposite of the news. Like I say, that Sky were breaking yesterday, and the fact that he hasn't expressed his desire or requested to leave Tottenham. It's more of a case of he's been frustrated with the season and how it's panned out, and I think every fan's in agreement there, because we're all disappointed, we're all underwhelmed by the season. We expected a lot, and we've got the opposite really. We've got absolutely nothing out of it, so it just feels like a bit of a dead rubber. Obviously, the Mourinho experiment, if you like, didn't work. So Tottenham now are at a real crossroads. But I feel like with this particular situation, and I think this is where it differs from the other players who have left Tottenham previously, like Kyle Walker, Michael Carrick, Dimitar Berbatov, players like that. I think the ball is a bit more in Levy's court this time around than it was with those other players, because I think Walker's head got turned by interest by City. So, it was a case of, Daniel Levy sort of having to cash in. With Berbatov and Carrick, Spurs were almost bullied into selling. And even if I look at Gareth Bale, it was like, okay, we're in no real obligation to sell, and if we were to sell, then it would have to take a pretty sizable offer, which is obviously what we got for Gareth Bale at the time. I see some fairly sort of similarities there with Kane. If he is to go, it's going to be a sizable offer that's going to even entertain Daniel Levy in terms of doing anything. I think, like I say, the ball's very much in his court. Kane's still got a long time left on his contract as well. Obviously, star player at Tottenham, leader on and off the pitch. So yeah, I don't. It's interesting, obviously, but yeah, I think this time around, compared to other players leaving, I think Tottenham are a little bit more in control of this particular situation than they have been previously.
I like that you mentioned, other notable departures such as Bale, Carrick, just to compare for those who didn't know that, you guys have the fact that you were explaining, that the ball's in Levy's court. I wanted to get your thoughts because I saw the news yesterday, and um, I wanted to I wanted to ask if you were actually surprised that it's taking Harry this long to finally take the step that he probably needs for his, professional career, knowing we all know how great he is. And this season, he's just gone, well, you mentioned he's been a shining light. He's gone up another level, leading the goal scoring charts as well as the assists charts this season. Are you surprised that it's taken Kane this long to finally take that decision? Or I'm sure you being a Spurs fan, you were hoping he'd stay for obviously his whole career, but we all know that players have personal desires, they want to go elsewhere. So are you surprised that it's taken Harry this long, knowing how good he is?
Um, maybe. Um, it just I think we're so used to players moving clubs now after, say, 2-3 years, maybe even maybe a little bit longer, that you don't kind of get that longevity. So the fact that Kane has stayed this long, I think, is a testament to probably the direction that the club were going in as he's developed and as he's got older. But again, testament to himself. He's always getting linked with a move away. I think, again, excuse me, if I look on Twitter last night, I'm not saying Twitter's the best source in the world for information, but actually it's quite credible at times. Sky sell him every 5 minutes. It's ridiculous. I think Tottenham fans were quite refreshed with the social media boycott that happened, because we didn't see that Sky were trying to sell Harry Kane again. They've been trying to sell him virtually ever since he sort of burst onto the scene and broke through. So yeah, I think that the strangest thing is probably the timing of the announcement, because Tottenham still have a little bit to play for in the sense of getting European football, which obviously within this economic climate with the pandemic, I think is really, really important in terms of generating that extra revenue. We all know that the likes of Kane and Tottenham as a football club want to be in the Champions League, and it does baffle me sometimes when I hear about players wanting to play Champions League football and they're leaving to pursue that. Well, how about you do your job and help the team get into the Champions League in the first place? Now, I know this is pretty different with Harry Kane, because he's literally doing all he can to get Tottenham into the Champions League. It's probably, those around him at times that aren't helping the situation. But yeah, I think that in terms of time, all right, it's coming to the end of the season. You transfer window officially isn't open yet. I know there's, you can still conduct deals and whatnot. But yeah, I think, again, reading from various different sources, different posts this morning, again on Twitter, it's, the club aren't exactly happy with the timing of the leak of it or whatever. But I think if there was one player at Tottenham who has the ability to put pressure, if you like, on the board to effectively spend, some good money and to get Tottenham on a level of competing again, in terms of challenging, for not even, the league or whatever, but getting into those latter stages of competitions and, almost getting us back to where the gaffer, as I like to call him, Poch, took us, consistently finishing in that Champions League, in those Champions League spaces. But I think if there's one player that holds that level of power at Tottenham, it is Harry Kane.
Yeah.
So this kind of feels like it's an ultimatum. It's either invest, get the right manager in, and I say back them, but give them the tools that they need to succeed, or I'm off. It feels like one of those.
Yeah.
And I think he's just planting that seed of doubt into the minds of the board to go, right, well, if we don't basically buck our ideas up, the main man's off, and then we're right in it then, because you can't replace a player like Harry Kane. It's virtually impossible. I mean, Spurs have tried to replace a world-class player before, and that went horribly wrong. So yeah, it's one of those where, if he is to go, I think he goes with every Tottenham fan's blessing, because he has been consistent in terms of the levels that he's shown over the years. But I think someone made an interesting point, actually, in the sense that Kane's been in I think it's three finals. So I want to say 2015 League Cup final, the Champions League final, and then the recent Carabao Cup final. But if anybody wants to correct me on those, then please feel free to do so. But I'm pretty sure those are the three finals that he's been in. And okay, Champions League final, he wasn't really fit. You could probably see that. The recent League Cup final, again, probably wasn't fit enough. But he hasn't really done a lot in those finals. So yes, I mean, he's done unbelievable things in the league in terms of that goal return and everything like that. But it's almost like when it matters, I don't know if it's a team thing or a personal thing, because we all know Tottenham struggled to turn up in big games over the years, but Kane himself hasn't really done too much in those finals where you think, right, big players, big stage, my time to shine, and all of that. So yeah, but like I say, I think he leaves with every Tottenham fan's blessing, because what he's done and what he's achieved in terms of his goal return and the golden boots and the way he's played, the way he's performed for Tottenham has been fantastic. And I don't think anybody can really have a go at him in terms of what he's done. It's just that, like I say, when we get to those critical moments, we just kind of choke as a team. And obviously, Kane's been a part of those teams when we've got to those finals. But yeah, that's sort of how I view it, really.
Talk to me more about the Tottenham fans' perspective, because you mentioned, the fact that yes, he will probably receive their blessing, but in terms of, I guess, the Tottenham fans' perspective on him leaving, um, and I guess how they view him as, a player that played for Tottenham, how they view his time here at Tottenham. If you could just expand on that a bit more.
Yes, Kane. Listen, if Kane leaves, the fan base goes into meltdown, and the Daniel Levy's got blood on his hands if he sells Harry Kane, especially to an English club.
Right.
But he's a hero for many, many, many people, many young kids up and down the country. He's a hero. I obviously, with my coaching, I see lots and lots of players. And I always ask them, especially if they're Spurs fans, I always go like, "Oh, obviously I'm buzzing because it's another Spurs fan." But I always ask who their favourite player is, and more often than not, Harry Kane is in that conversation. So yeah, I think he will go down as a Tottenham legend, 100%. So yeah, it's one of the. It's going to be a disaster if he leaves. There's no getting away from that, because he's a world-class footballer. He gets in any team in the world. So I think, yeah, the world's going to end, basically. Twitter's going to go mad. Every fan's going to go into a meltdown. So yeah, I just think, look, his time at the club is going to be viewed probably in the sense of the club failed him.
Yeah, yeah,
If he is to leave without lifting any trophies or anything like that, it seems like, from the fans' reaction, from what I've seen, it's a case of the club have failed him in terms of getting the right level of support around him on the playing staff to then help him succeed and achieve what he wants to achieve. But yeah, like this, if he does leave, it's going to be an absolute disaster for Tottenham as a football club and the ambition of the club going forwards.
Right.
And I think that will then impact on who the new manager is going to be. Because if you're a new manager coming in and you've got Harry Kane, you've got half a chance of doing anything, at minimum half a chance. A Tottenham without Harry Kane is a completely different prospect. Now, I know Tottenham have played without Harry Kane before and have been on, quite long spells without Harry Kane. There was even an argument at one point when we reached that Champions League final of do Tottenham play better without Harry Kane? But I think his presence was still felt within the team and within the squad. You take that away and it's like, it's like it's going to be worse than a breakup. Now, let's put it that way. Do you know what I mean? Like a breakup is going to be easier to deal with than for a lot of Spurs fans probably than Tottenham losing the main man Harry Kane. It's going to be that bad. Like I say, he's a legend. He's a hero for most young people. Even my dad loves Harry Kane. My dad's seen loads and loads of players over his time watching Spurs. My dad's 60, so he's seen some good. He's seen some bad. Definitely seen some bad. He's definitely seen some ugly as well in his time as Spurs. And he, my dad's seen some fantastic centre forwards in his time. We're talking about Clive Allen scoring 49 goals in one season at that particular time where it was unheard of. Like now you get Messi, Ronaldo, Lewandowski hitting them numbers regularly, and it's like light work. And things like that. But yeah, for my dad to say that Kane is the best centre forward that he's seen in his time as a Spurs fan, I think says a lot.
Wow. So disaster, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Disaster
yeah.
for Harry Kane leaving Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Now, for Spurs to avoid it becoming even worse, because I think a good example that you mentioned was the departure of Gareth Bale. And when Gareth Bale left for Real Madrid, the money that you guys received for Gareth Bale, the investment that you guys made with that money, you would probably argue was probably one of the worst. You know, I mean, what's your view on that in terms of like? I guess what I'm trying to say is the ball's in Levy's court now. He can sell Harry Kane for how much he believes Harry Kane's worth, or try to get as much money as he can for Harry Kane. Who would you then go on to replace Harry Kane? Now, it's difficult, obviously, we know in this market, the type of, there's not many world class strikers available right now in the market, but the ball's in Levy's court. Okay. Who do you think that the club should get to replace? Like you said, it's probably difficult to replace Harry Kane, anyways. You
Hmm.
could, you could maybe switch it up, put Son as a, up top and get another winger to come in. That's but if you had to get somebody in to replace Harry Kane, who would you? Is there anyone that comes to mind, or what would you do in that scenario? Like, especially like you've mentioned, the new manager comes in now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's likely that Harry Kane isn't going to be there. So depending obviously on the manager, they may have a player that they think could do that job. So yeah, I'll leave it to you. Who do you think should come in and take up that number 9 spot up top?
Um, I think it's going to be. It's definitely going to be interesting in terms of if Kane was to leave, obviously how much money would receive. I did see something funny earlier, where a Tottenham fan was listing about a Tottenham rebuild, and there was a few players that were being sold. I think it was like Kane, Aurier, Dele, Davinson Sanchez, few maybe a couple of others, and he come up with a figure of 250 million, and someone's response was, "There's no way that Kane goes for 230 million." So, but yeah, I think in terms of replacing, wow, like you say, there's not many centre forwards about in general, let alone world class ones. Um, do the club then go for a younger one, and then maybe bring in a slightly more experienced one. I don't know. I think, if I take Everton as an example here, when they sold Lukaku to United, they then went. Obviously, they've spent an absolute fortune. But what they tried to do was get goals from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't think that really worked out for them. So I mean, do you try and go British with your centre forwards? Does that mean then that you go with the likes of Danny Ings maybe at Southampton? Obviously got 1 year left on his contract. Do you try and tempt Calvert-Lewin away from Everton? You know, Odsonne Edouard maybe at Celtic could be an option. 20, I think he's 23.
Yeah, 23.
Could be a good option as well. But I think as well what Tottenham haven't done is replaced other areas of the pitch as well.
Mhm.
So, it may have to, unfortunately, I'm hating admitting this, but it may have to take a superstar almost for Tottenham to sell to then be able to replace those other, because Tottenham still haven't replaced Kyle Walker. Still haven't replaced Kyle Walker. I think we replaced him with his backup in Kieran Trippier, sold him, and then replaced him with his backup, which was Serge Aurier. Still haven't replaced Jan Vertonghen. I think Tottenham have missed Supian this season 100%. Even if his legs were gone last season, they've still missed him this season. Still haven't replaced the greatest of all time, Moussa Dembele. All right, and Ndombele is probably the closest thing we're going to get, but his Tottenham career has been very, very stop-start, and struggling to get in the team now under Ryan Mason. Haven't replaced Christian Eriksen at all, so I think that's why Kane's influence on the team has been so great this season, because he's effectively not only done his job, but he's done probably Christian Eriksen's job as well, and that's why he's totting up those assists. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a replacement, I mean, good luck. Good luck finding any half decent centre forward out there. That it's tough, and again, you've got to add into the mix the pandemic, because the market's going to be all over the place. It really is. Are players going for perhaps their market value pre-COVID, or has COVID now impacted a player's market value whereby that market value might have dropped 5-10 million because of the way finances are. But yeah, obviously I don't want Tottenham to sell Harry Kane. I'm not saying that Tottenham should sell Harry Kane in any stretch. Like, keep him at all costs. Give him what, if it's money, give the guy what he wants. But he has a lot of influence, as I said earlier, at Tottenham. There's Harry Kane. So yeah, like I said, he's probably the one that can just put that pressure on the board, just to maybe get them to butt their ideas up a little bit in their recruitment. But if he is to leave, I might go hiding, especially if he goes to another English club, because I
Yeah,
can't imagine
yeah,
him at City. That's a cheat code. Like,
yeah, yeah.
imagine Kane at City. That's a cheat code, because he's got De Bruyne, he's got Bernardo Silva, he's got Foden, he's got Gundogan, he's got all of them guys behind him. If he goes to United again, he's got Bruno. He's got Pogba spraying balls over the top, and Rashford coming in off the line and whatnot. So again, that could be another cheat code essentially, because he's got Bruno behind him. Even Donny van der Beek is a player that we've loved for a few years, but can't get in the United team. Yeah, if he goes to Chelsea, every Tottenham fan will cry,
Yeah,
big
yeah.
time. I can't see it happening. Like, Chelsea's probably the one that I seriously cannot see happening out of any club. Is there something in a little reunion with Poch? Yeah, I think there's something in that, because I think PSG are lacking that sort of world-class number 9. Kane is that world class number 9. They've got they're probably one of very few clubs that can actually afford to finance the deal, even with the pandemic. So yeah, I think that's sort of where, if Kane is to leave, I think Levy's preference will be abroad, of course. Does he go to Real Madrid potentially? But then Benzema is aging like a fine wine, and they've still got Luka Jovic, who I know he hasn't really worked out, but is still a half decent centre forward, as well. I know they've got I think it's Mariano Diaz there as
Yeah,
well.
Mariano. Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure if Bayo Mayoral is still there as well. But they've got a few options. Obviously, they're just not
Got a
of
few
that
options.
top
Yeah.
level quality, and they're not that Galactico that Madrid, always need. Don't see him going to Barca because I think they looks like they might be getting Memphis and Aguero. So yeah, won't go to Bayern because of Lewandowski. So yeah, I mean PSG, please, if he is to leave, PSG,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. You kind of answered my follow-up question, which is where you think Harry Kane would go. Because like you mentioned, yeah, Levy would probably prefer him to go abroad. Um, and yeah, it's slightly, well, the way I see it, I think when you mentioned Poch and how Poch was the one who kind of ignited his career, got him playing some of the best football ever before, he's now gone up another level this season. I can see that happening. I guess now with Harry Kane leaving or potentially leaving or likely to leave now, are you worried as a Tottenham fan that this could spark a mass exodus of other players leaving the club? Like I mentioned, I believe you have another world class player in, who my favorite player is at your club, and that's Sonny. And Sonny for me is a world class player. If people don't get that now, just please do something. Anyways, yeah. So are you worried that you know okay, with Kane leaving, that there could be a potential exodus? Me being an Arsenal fan, I know that's happened before. You know, we talked about before we went on air, and the fact that we've had players the likes of Henry, Van Persie, Fabregas, Nasri, all of these players leaving. So yeah, are you worried as a Spurs fan that this could do that? It could spark that?
Um, Not well. History would suggest no,
Right.
because we've sold top players before, and there wasn't that. All of a sudden everybody else wants to jump ship. Again, mentioned earlier, Carrick was a top player for Spurs and went to United. But actually, at that time, I think Spurs were pretty stacked in midfield. Um, but obviously, Carrick was the one that was playing more regularly. Um, Berbatov leaving, I think the way that happened was criminal. And then we got absolutely shafted by United. Deadline day, last few hours. Yeah, you're going to take our best striker, and then we're going to get one of your reserve strikers on loan. Um, and obviously Luka Modric, we sold him to Real Madrid, and again, it wasn't. I think at that time Tottenham were changing as a team. So Modric left. Van der Vaart also left in that same window, but again, there wasn't really that max exodus. Bale left, and then it was like that was probably the one where Bale left, but it wasn't just Bale. Like it was like Bale left. I think Huddleston left. Parker left. There was quite a few that did leave, but it wasn't. There were more squad players as opposed to those first 11. I think the interesting one is you mentioned there, Son. Um,
Yeah.
there's a contractual thing going there. Sonny's yet to sign his new contract, so we're led to believe. If Kane does go, then is he gonna sign that contract? Yes, he might be paid handsomely, but actually, Sonny might be one where he wants to play and train alongside the likes of Kane and be around some of the best or some really really top players. So yeah, I don't think it will spark a max exodus. I think a lot of players might just start thinking about what,
Okay. Okay.
is it oh, this club really showing the ambition that they've told me that they want, or is it a case of actually the players kind of go, well, it's football, it happens. Again, I think it does depend on. I think also Kane's future depends on who comes in, because if Spurs have been linked with Graham Potter and Scott Parker. No disrespect to these two as people, but if you're Harry Kane and those two walk in the door, what are you thinking there at that point? Scott Parker's just taken Fulham down. Graham Potter's finishing. Again, he's been in a relegation scrap all year, and his Brighton team can't score for toffee. But then at the same time, if you have somebody that walks into the door like a Brendan Rodgers or an Eric Ten Hag, for example, you might actually, okay, I know what these coaches are about. They've got that bit more experience. You can see what they've done with their teams, developing players, making them better. And look at what they've achieved in their managerial careers. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers just won the FA Cup with Leicester, won numerous trophies up in Scotland. Ten Hag, obviously winning a few leagues with Ajax, getting that Ajax team in 2019 to the semi-finals, and of the Champions League and things like that. So, yeah, it does depend as well, I think, on who the manager is. So again, Kane putting that pressure on the board to actually say, look, get your managerial appointment right, but then also get the right level of player in the building, to help me achieve what I want to achieve. Because yes, he's been frustrated. He wants these team trophies now. Yes, it's great him winning these golden boots and these player of the year awards at London football awards and things like that. But at the end of the day, he's got a young family. He wants to tell his kids when they grow up, like, oh, Daddy, were you really, really good? Yeah, well, I did this, I did it. I played at World Cups, played at European Championships. Oh, what did you win? Well, I actually won a few golden boots. I won there. Oh, so you didn't win anything with the club that you was at, like Tottenham? No, unfortunately, we weren't quite good enough. And then they'll go, oh, but you're being dubbed this like world-class player, but you didn't really win anything. So yeah, I think that's what I'd probably say. I can't really see a max exodus, but players might start changing their way of thinking.
No worries. That is nearly it for this episode, but I just wanted to get you one more question and another quick answer to finish off. So currently, where do you see, in terms of top strikers in the world, where do you see Kane? In terms of where he is right now. And by him leaving, do you think obviously that gives him the opportunity to potentially become number one? Because I think many people probably rank Lewandowski as number one right now. But where would you see him right now? Just to finish off quickly.
I would probably see Kane on a par with Lewandowski.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's down to leagues or anything like that, because ultimately you can only play what's put in front of you, play against what's put in front of you, and score against that level of opposition that you're up against. People say about Crouch and even Danny Welbeck for England, like their goal records for England are brilliant, but then they go, yeah, but they haven't really played against anyone. Well, that's not their fault. They can only do the job that's in hand. I think if he does go and starts winning those trophies, I think then he's definitely in that proper. I mean, he's in the conversation anyway, but it's like, no, Harry Kane, 100% world class. Because I think like it's hard, I think, for fans to kind of champion their own player, because you've got fans of other clubs going, no, he's this, no, he's not all that. Da, 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 da. What's he won? Which he gets leveled at all the time. But yeah, I think if he does start to win more team trophies, I think his persona almost, from an outsider's perspective, like it just, it really puts him up there. I think that's probably what Lewandowski's got over Kane, even like Luis Suarez, who I've hated and loved watching at the same time over the years, because he's been an absolute menace. See, even this season, I think he's been up there in terms of, you know, best centre forwards that we've seen. You know, in terms of that being that genuine world class player. So I think if you're looking at, say, top 5, you've got to go probably Lewandowski and Kane. I'd probably put joint first. Then you've got like Benzema and Suarez, certainly in that conversation as well. I think Haaland is breaking in there. His goal record is nothing short of ridiculous. It's a joke. Somebody needs to test him, because it's like not human, the level that that Haaland is producing at such a young age, and those numbers are crazily stupid again for somebody so young. So yeah, I think Kane's certainly up there, but I just think what's missing from him in terms of that full package. I mean, as a player, Harry Kane can do everything, but it's almost like those trophies are missing from his I wouldn't say repertoire, but they're just missing from him. It's almost like that missing piece of that jigsaw is those trophies. But then I think once he does that, he will then get, I think, a lot more respect.
Yeah,
I think from other fans across, you know, the board and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, I'd certainly put Kane up there, because like I say, as a centre forward, he can do absolutely everything.
that is it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in and listening to myself and Wes talk about Harry Kane. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave a comment on our YouTube comment section below. Give us your thoughts on today's episodes and also what you would like us to talk about in the future. As well, you can listen to this episode on Spotify at WM32 Football. And as well, please follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at WM32 Football as well. Don't forget, you can get your merch. As you can see, me and Wes are repping the merch. So if you would like to get your merch, please head to the website at www.wm32football.com/shop. It's a little tongue twister there for you lot. But yes, head to the shop as well to get your merch. As well, if you'd like to book sessions as well and sign up to a mini kicker session, as well as the Jack Collison Soccer Schools, which is beginning on June 1st as well, then head over to www.wm32football.com as well. Anything you would like to add, Wes, before we finish?
I think you've covered it, Nelson. I think you've covered it. But yeah, great to be back doing another podcast. And yeah, really, really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on WM32 Football. Bye bye.
Cheers. See ya.